A student asked, why would we diffuse light rather than just use a dimmer to dim the light? The short answer is that diffusing the light makes it softer. It makes the contrast between the highlights and the shadows of your image not as contrasty. To show you this in practice, I've set up a situation where I have an LED panel I'm sitting in front of. Right now you can see it with 100% power with no diffusion. It's pretty harsh, right? It's too bright, it's overexposed. So what do? We can drop down with the dimmer to 50% power. This is a 500 watt equivalent light, still a little bright. So let's drop it down even more. So now the side of my face that is exposed properly on the left side of my face looks good, but there's a ton of contrast, a ton of shadows you can see in on my nose, on the side of my face, and this is at 15% power. The background also gets super dark, which is not necessarily a bad thing. This is perhaps a style that you're going for. This light is very focused and directed on the subject, on me. It's not soft light, it's hard light. Let's go ahead and add some diffusion. My Dracast lights have these little plastic diffusion filters. So to start out with, I added that, and that cuts down the light a bit. You can see that at 100% power, it's still overexposed, but closer to exposure. I'm going to add this softbox on top of that diffusion as well, so combining them. This is going to cut the light down quite a bit. And you can see that with both the diffusion filter and the softbox, I'm exposed properly and the light is a lot softer. We're going to see a side-by-side comparison in just a second. It is a little dark though, and so I'm going to go ahead and take out that diffusion filter so you can see what just the softbox looks like. And this is with 100% power. Remember, with 100% power without the softbox, it was so bright. It was so contrasty, so bright, and too hard. For this first side-by-side, I'm comparing the 50% power without diffusion to 100% with diffusion because it has a similar overall exposure. If I pause it here, you can see that with the diffusion, it spreads out the light. So the background gets a little bit more light, and that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing. Maybe you want your light focused on your subject and the background to be a little bit darker. And so this video isn't supposed to tell you you have to use soft diffuse light. There's a time and place for each type of light. But as you can see, the light is spread a little bit more evenly with the diffusion card on the right hand side. The shadow isn't as dark, and we're gonna punch in here just a little bit so you can see even more details. But that light, those shadows are a little bit brighter and it's not as contrasty with the diffusion. Now let's see what it looks like with the softbox. So here you can see that the light is even softer with just the softbox compared to the no diffusion. Overall, on my face, the light is softer. My entire face is more exposed. It's still a little bit dark. I would probably play around with the position of the light if I wanted to make sure that the shadows weren't as harsh on the side of my nose like it is on the left side of the screen with no diffusion. Here's the same setup with just the softbox, not the diffusion card. And if we pause it here, you can see that the shadows and the contrast from the bright to the darks is higher with no diffusion than with the softbox. And don't just pay attention to the shadows because the shadows still are dark in both of these video clips, but notice the highlights, the contrast, that's what we're talking about. The bright side of my face with the no diffusion is a lot brighter than the one with the softbox. Overall, the softbox spreads out that light and everything gets a little bit more even. So one more wide look with the two shots. Notice the background, notice the contrast of the light, the shadows versus the highlights, and that's what you get by adding diffusion. Again, doesn't mean you can't use just dimming your light to get proper exposure or changing the settings on your camera to get proper exposure, but hopefully this helps you understand what diffusing light does. All right, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in another video. Thanks for the question.